Hey guys, family and friends, sorry for being tardy to the party. Baby issues and such, dog issues and everything preventing me from being on time, but that's what I get for having an almost 7-month-old. So today I wanted to share some of my experience with my chickens so far, and let me first start off by saying I am definitely not an expert. I am by no means, a seasoned chicken keeper or anything like that. But I just wanted to share with you my experience and a lot of the research that I did before even investing in the whole chicken coop and setup and everything. So what I did, or what me and my husband did before we even started building our coop, started thinking about getting our chickens, is that we just did a ton of research, a ton of research. I reached out to some of my friends who own chickens. I looked in some of my old school textbooks, but surprisingly they didn't have anything on poultry. So like my McKernan's textbook, which was like 1,500 pages, it had everything you can imagine: goats, horses, cows, even exotic breeds, but no chickens. So I had to turn to some other sources like YouTube, internet articles. Tractor Supply has some really good magazines and books for keeping backyard chickens, free-range chickens, things like that. So I did a ton of research before, setting everything up, just so I could have a little bit of background. So I've had my chickens for about a week now. They're doing amazing. I've been getting about 3 to 4 eggs a day. And again, I have the Golden Comet variety, which are one of the best egg producers. They are a crossbreed. They're very docile. And I have 4. In hindsight, I wish I would have got 6, but I can always add on. And we'll talk about adding to your flock a little later on. So real quick, as I'm waiting for some more people to hop on here, I'll just show you my ladies. I have been letting them free range. As you can see, the kennel door is open, and Carlisle and Louie, my 2 dogs, have been doing fine with them. Carlisle is actually learning how to herd them back into their pen when I need them to go back in, or at nighttime. Right now they're enjoying a mealworm treat block and some nice fresh water. So, yep, those are my ladies. One is just relaxing in the coop right now. It's kind of hot outside, not as hot as yesterday. Yesterday was a killer. It did rain a good bit, which cooled everything off, which was kind of nice. So, if anybody has any questions, I'll try to answer them. Oh, thanks, Adrian. Thank you so much. If anybody has any questions or comments, I'll try to answer them as I go along. Or we'll have a Q&A session at the end. So, I did write some notes down, just some bullet points I wanted to go over. I didn't want to leave anything out. So yeah, we'll get started here. So Chickens 101, or Hens 101, I should say. So the first thing you want to do if you're thinking about investing in backyard chickens, livestock, anything like that, is check your county laws first. So for instance, I live in Chesterfield County, and in the past 2 years they actually did change the laws on having backyard chickens. Unless you live in like a homeowners association, you can pretty much have chickens. So the Chesterfield County laws, the zoning laws state that you can have up to 6 hens, no roosters. Of course, you can get permits to get more hens within reason and a rooster, as long as it's okay with your adjacent neighbors, because they can, of course, be obnoxious, loud and such. The Chesterfield County law also states that your chickens have to have at least 10 square foot to live in, which is tiny. That's teeny tiny. If you try to fit 6 chickens in a 10 square foot area, you might as well be putting them in one of those Tyson chicken trucks that you see driving down the highway. That's really small. That's like a guest bathroom size for comparison. the law also states that they must be at least 25 feet away from adjacent property lines. So you do have to have a good bit of space if you're thinking of investing in some chickens. Of course, like I said, you can get permits to get different livestock, or more chicken or more hens or rooster, but you're gonna have to fork over some moolah for that. So those are the Chesterfield County laws. I don't know specifically about the other counties in Virginia. Those are at least the laws in my area, and Chesterfield County is pretty big. So like I said, unless you live in a homeowners association, you can have up to 6 chickens as long as you have the space requirement for them. So the next thing I wanted to go over is how much room do chickens actually need? The county law says they need at least a minimum of 10 square foot. Like I said, that's extremely small, extremely small. So the general rule of thumb for large chickens or your average size adult hen is 8 to 10 square foot roaming area per chicken if they are kept in a run. If they are free range, obviously they have all the room they need, or at least, you know, if you have a big backyard like I do, it's gigantic. It's plenty of room. And then as far as the coop goes, you want at least 1.5 to 2 square foot of room per chicken in the coop. So my run, less the coop, and some of the tools I have in here, is about 65 to 70 square foot, which is plenty. I mean, I could fit up to 8 hens in here comfortably, especially since I let them free range during the day. So, and then my coop, the top and bottom about 4 square foot, so that's perfect. If I wanted to get more chickens, I would have to add on to my coop. But that'll be a project for a much later date, probably next spring. So yeah, that's about the room requirements for the chickens. You want to make sure they have plenty of room to peck around at the ground. They're not overcrowded. They're not stuffed. It can interfere with the pecking order. The chickens can get stressed out. They'll start, you know, fighting with each other, and that can happen. And you don't want that to happen. So moving on to my next point here, food and water. Obviously, they need fresh food, fresh water every single day. The feed I got when I went to go pick up my chickens, it is an Amish-made feed. They mill their own feed, and it's a layer feed. So basically what that means, I'll show you here. It's milled, so it's kind of ground up. It's a variety of different things. There's some corn in there, some sunflower seeds. There's added calcium, which is very important for strong eggshells, egg production. There's also a different kind of feed. It's called pellet form, and it's exactly what it sounds like. Pellets they pick at. Different stores sell feed. Tractor Supply sells poultry feed. You can order it online. It's relatively inexpensive, but when you are looking for feed, you want to make sure that you have the certain nutritional requirements. So a good blend of feed will have about 16 to 18% of protein in it, about 3.5 to 4.5, 5% calcium. Again, very important for egg production, making those nice strong shells for the eggs. And then 0.4% of phosphorus or higher. And that's if your chickens are pullets, which means they're basically teenage chickens. Chicks need a special type of feed. I don't know if I will ever raise chicks, just because it's such a commitment. It does take so much time, and not all of them make it. So that it does get kind of sad when you see those cute little baby chicks, and then only about 80% of your chicks will actually make it into adulthood. So I'm talking about feed for adult chickens, 18 weeks and up. So you want to get a good quality feed. Of course, you can supplement. If your feed doesn't have those requirements, you can get things like oyster shell, ground up oyster shell, which I actually have some up here I'll show you. You can get it commercially. in a lot of different places, or you can, you know, eat some oysters for dinner and then ground them up. But this is oyster shell. It's Do More. They make really good products. It's a lot. This will last them a very long time. And I throw this out in the yard when they free range, just so they can scratch around on it and peck at it. And they will kind of self-regulate. It's not going to hurt them if they eat extra calcium, of course. It's just going to make the eggs that much more durable and make egg production that much better. So, let's see here, my next bullet point. Got some notes here. Another thing that you want to make sure your chickens have, as far as feed-wise, is grit. So basically, crushed up granite. And that's going to help them digest the food. 'Cause what they do is when they eat the granite, it sits in their gullets, and it helps them start digesting their food before they actually swallow it, and it goes into their bellies. So you want to make sure you have some of that if you are keeping them in a run. Now, if they are free range, they don't really need much. They're going to find all they need on the ground already. So, I did initially invest in a little bit of grit that actually had some calcium additive in it, but that can get kind of pricey after a while. So I was like, yeah, why not? You know, I'll let them free range so I don't have to keep spending money on the grit. It's not that expensive, but over time, you know, the cost does add up. There's a few things that you don't want to feed chickens. They are great composters. So if you have leftovers from dinner, you can generally throw most things out into the, you know, run area, and they will just scarf it right up. But there are a few things you don't want to feed them. Number one being raw eggs, obviously. They will start learning to eat their own eggs if you do that. So once they lay an egg, they're going to be like, oh, there's food, and eat the egg, and, you know, it's no good after that. You can feed them meat. I would be a little bit wary of that, though. I obviously wouldn't feed them chicken, because I don't want to make them, you know, Hannibal Lecter over here, you know what I mean? So, there's a few other things as far as fruits and vegetables that aren't great for them, but there is some debate amongst chicken owners whether they are or not. One of the things is citrus fruits. Some people say they're fine in moderation. Some people say don't ever give them citrus fruits like oranges, you know, lemons, things like that. There's also some debate on potatoes. Of course, never give chickens either moldy potatoes, old potatoes, or green potatoes, like the unripe ones. Basically the ones that you wouldn't eat. I don't really see a problem with doing just some, you know, leftover dinner potatoes, as long as they're not seasoned too heavily, like especially with a lot of salt, or garlic, which they can't have either. Onions, no good for them. Avocado, again, some debate on that, whether it's good in moderation or not. The stems of the potatoes also, if you're growing potatoes like I have in my front yard, they can be toxic to them, so don't give them any stems of the potatoes. Dry uncooked beans can be toxic to them, but they're fine if you know, green beans or like kidney beans or whatever. Just make sure they're cooked, and then you can throw them out there. Avoid heavy salty, you know, leftovers, or sugary leftovers, or heavily processed foods, things like that. So just try to feed them whole foods. So you can cut up some apple slices. They love corn on the cob, broccoli, lettuce, anything like that is fine. And then also avoid really yeasty foods. So don't try to feed them a lot of bread, because they can actually get a thrush infection. And then you have to call Dr. Doolittle or whoever your local poultry vet is around to get some treatment for that. As far as treats go, as I showed you earlier, they are enjoying a mealworm block, and it does have some other things in there. some sunflower seeds and such, and they're loving it. That one, the one you see standing on the block, is actually, she is the dominant one of the group. She, I guess, is the head hen of this pecking order. She will shoo other hens away if she's trying to get to the water and somebody's in her way. So I'm trying to figure out who is who. But I know her because she can be a little feisty at sometimes. Not mean, but just feisty with the other chickens. She also has the most white on her neck, so that's how I identify her. So, on to my next bullet point here. As far as the coop goes, if you're thinking about building your own coop, there are a lot of really good, affordable commercial coops that you can buy. For instance, they have some, you can special order them online. You can get them from Tractor Supply. They're already built to just be put together by two people, you know, some screws and nails, things like that. They also have snap together ones. But if you're thinking of building your own coop, you want to make sure you have a few things in there. So you want to make sure you have, first, enough room for your chickens. You want to have a spot where they can sleep and a spot where they can lay eggs. You also want to have really good ventilation, especially in the summer, because a bunch of different reasons. They're really susceptible to respiratory infections, so you want to make sure that you have plenty of ventilation. If you smell an ammonia smell, that's how you know you don't have enough ventilation, and you might need to add a small window or some holes. What I did this morning, or actually right before I hopped on the video, is we had these holes before, but I did just cover them with some hardware cloth, because this is actually enough room for a mouse or a snake or something to get into and either eat your eggs or harm your chickens. So I put them on, I have 4 holes and then 2 on the other side that you can't see, but I put this on. It's really sturdy, nothing can get in there. And if I find that there is an ammonia smell in the coop, especially when it gets hotter during these muggy hot Virginia days, I will drill a couple more holes in there and do the same thing, cover them with some hardware cloth. Now, as far as ventilation goes, there is a difference between drafts and ventilation. So drafts are welcomed in the summer when it gets really hot. If a nice breeze blows through there, it's not going to hurt the chickens. Luckily in Virginia here we live in a nice, pretty even climate. So during the winter it doesn't ever really get below 0. But still you want to make sure that you don't have too many drafts in the winter. So if you decide to put a large window in your coop or a large hole or something like that, and you find it's just really drafty in there, you want to make sure that you have something to either cover them up with during the winter. You could use like a tarp. You could use just a little door with like a hinge on it and a latch so you can open and close it as needed. The great thing about chickens is their body temperatures run about 106 degrees, and they do cuddle up at night to stay warm. There's one of Drew's friends in Alaska actually has chickens, and you know temperatures can get really cold up there, so they do what they call winterizing their coop, which basically they take a tarp or a plastic sheet and they cover most of the coop, not all of it because you still want ventilation, but just to keep most of the snow and moisture out. But as far as this Virginia weather and excuse me, Virginia weather and being such a temperate climate, they'll be fine in the winter. If need be, if it does magically get below 0 degrees Fahrenheit, I will, you know, throw a tarp up there and just make sure they have enough bedding, and they're all cuddled together to stay warm. So that's a little bit about ventilation. Another point about ventilation is you want to make sure, this is the bottom of the sleeping area right here. You want to make sure you have your ventilation up top because hot air obviously rises, so you want to get the hot air up and out. Again, to avoid any respiratory issues, that'll really help with it. All the moisture is just kind of go out there. And if it does get too hot, I can always, you know, take my removable door down and just kind of let it air out a little bit until I can get some more holes drilled in there. As you can see, that one over there is enjoying her free ranging time. So my next point I wanted to talk about is pests, pests and predators. So as far as predators go, I actually did see a small hawk yesterday. So as far as birds of prey go, they don't, from what I've heard from other people, generally go for the adult chickens, but they certainly will go for like the teenage chickens, and especially chicks, because they're really easy to snatch up, especially if they're free ranging or you don't have your run completely covered. So what you could do is you could, you know, cover half of it like I did with a tarp, and then you can put some netting over the other half so they still get some sunlight and fresh air, but that will deter any birds of prey from swooping down and plucking up your chickens. Another good deterrent I have is Carlisle. He is my shepherd mix, and when I let them free range, I generally let him stay outside with them, you know, give him a nice cold bowl of water on a hot day, so that if, you know, he needs a drink or the chicken need drinks, they can, you know, get them from the bowl of water I have out there. Other predators like snakes, you know, possums sometimes can get them. There's not too much around here, even though we do live in a woodsy area. Skunks can get them sometimes. A lot of people do use electric fences, but the most important thing for protection against predators, especially since a lot of them are nocturnal, is to make sure your hens are locked up at night. I can't stress that enough. So once you see them, once it gets kind of dusky out, you'll kind of see them start heading up into the coop. You know, if you're in a hurry like I am sometimes between putting the baby down and putting the chickens down for the night as well, sometimes I'll kind of have to shuffle them in there and just make sure they are locked up. So I will lock the latches on the door, and I will also lock the door to the run. As far as pests go, chickens can get a number of diseases from pests, such as they can get mites, they can get lice, they can get fleas. I suppose they could get ticks, but they usually eat the ticks before the ticks even know it's coming. So I don't mind that. I hate ticks. They're really nasty. So there's a few things you can do to prevent them. There are, if you have an active infestation with any of your birds, there are chemical remedies, there are holistic remedies, but the best thing always is preventive measures. Preventive. You don't want to wait until you have a problem. So in the wild, chickens and I guess other poultry breed, you know, turkeys and stuff, they love dust baths. That's how they keep their feathers clean, because they don't take baths like you and I do. You know, they don't hop in a bowl of water and you know, with their little squeegee and scrub up. So what I did is I bought a small container of diatomaceous earth. It's basically crushed up fossils that are mined. It is food grade. I don't necessarily know if they needed food grade or not. That's just what they had at the store. But if you try to get a good picture of it. So this is it down here. As you can see, it's really dusty. So this is what's called a dust bath right here. And I wish I had gotten a video of it yesterday, because they were going nuts for this dust bath. All 4 of them were in there rolling around, having a good time, cleaning their feathers off. And afterwards, it actually, they did look a lot cleaner, which is weird. But so what I did is I bought that diatomaceous earth, and then as that kind of gets dissipated from them kicking it around and using it, I will add some wood ash in there. I don't know if you can see it, because I'm just sitting inside the coop, but I do have a burn pile out there. So any ash that I get from that, of course not today because it did rain yesterday, I will probably just add in to the dust pile I already have in there. So they can also use fine grit sand. So you can put a little sandbox in there. And it's just really fun for them. It's nice and cool on the ground, so on a nice hot day, they'll just kind of sit in there and cool off and relax, which is really nice. So the last thing I wanted to talk about are the pros and cons to having chickens. Is it really worth it? You have to weigh out your options. So for my birds, I am a stay-at-home mom for the most part, so I can dedicate up to, you know, a couple hours a day if need be to my birds. I do usually spend at least an hour, between 1 and 3 hours a day, just depending on how busy I am taking care of them, cleaning up after them, making sure they have fresh food and water, making sure they're happy, making sure they're protected, giving them a quick once over to make sure I don't see any injuries on them or any pests on them or anything like that. So generally you want to have at least an uninterrupted 30 minutes to 60 minutes a day to take care of your flock. So that is something to keep in mind, because you are going to want to pick up poop as you go along. One time a week or once every 2 weeks, you're going to want to do a full clean of the run. If they're kept in the run all the time, you're going to want to change out the straw and hay, change out the pine shavings, change out anything that's really dirty. They eat all day, they poop all day. Everything gets really messy. Sometimes you have to hose stuff down. Sometimes they poop on you. So, I mean, you have to make sure that you have at least 30 minutes every day to dedicate to them. Whether it be, you know, in the morning, making sure, you know, putting out some fresh food and water, or in the evening, and you've got to collect those eggs. You can't let those eggs sit in there. I mean, you can let, you know, a few of them pile up, but if, you know, too many eggs start to get in there, they're not going to want to lay as much. So you want to make sure that you gather your eggs. And I actually already got 3 today, and it's only about 1 o'clock, so that's pretty good. I actually think letting them free range is making them much happier, and I'm hoping it's going to boost their egg production a little bit. So I can get 4 a day instead of 3 to 4 a day. So definitely, if you're thinking about owning hens, backyard chickens, you want to kind of think about the pros and cons. Again, is it worth it? Do you have time to dedicate to them? Do you have, you know, a little bit of money to invest in them? I bought teenage birds, so they were about $15 a piece, which is actually really inexpensive. The farm I got them from, they do blood testing on them to make sure they have no major diseases, and they do vaccinate them as well. So for $15 a chicken, that's actually an amazing deal. So yeah, if you guys have any questions or comments or anything, we'll do a quick Q&A here. Just type them in the comment box and I'll try to answer them. I'll just go over a few more things, wait for people to type in any questions or comments, and if nobody has any questions, then we'll end the video. But I'll just take you around here again and show you some of the new things that I've added. So I did, let me switch my camera around here actually so you guys can see a little bit better. Alright, so I did invest in a galvanized steel 4-gallon bucket, which I am keeping the chicken poop and other miscellaneous things I'm picking up from the coop in there, and I'm going to add that to my compost pile. It's about half full. I'm just going to wait till it gets all the way full to empty it out. I just don't want to keep making trips all the way up to my front yard back and forth every day. So I did add a little rope swing down there. I actually moved that rope swing so they could get to it. I put a little box in here for fun. They like to hop up on this. Tip my water over. Well, I guess I won't be drinking that anymore. Another couple perches. Just seems really fun for them. I did have to zip tie my feeder box to the legs of the coop, because of course they'll jump on there and knock it over, and then you have to refill it and salvage what feed you can. So it's on there pretty good. It still has a little wiggle room, but so I zip tied it, and that seems to be working out just fine. And then the harbor cloth to protect against those little predators I showed you earlier. I also did invest in a 5-quart drinker instead of the 2 1-quart drinkers I have, so I only have to fill it up once a day or once every 2 days instead of several times a day, especially because it's not that dirty right now, but they do kick dirt into it, even though I have it up off the ground, and you do have to swish it out a couple times a day and make sure they have, you know, clean water to drink out of. And there's Carlisle protecting the birdies. He's sad because he has his shock collar on, and I had to give him a couple zaps because he's trying to eat the chicken poop. I don't know why. I guess it's delicious to him. So I did manage to get, here's my egg basket right here. It's got 3 more eggs. That's not a crack in the shell, that's just a piece of straw that's hanging on there. And that's it so far. So I'll probably take those in when I end the video. I always mark my eggs with the date so I know what day I got them. Because they are good up to 3 months at room temperature or 6 months in the refrigerator. And there's my other lovely lady in there. Oh, that's actually Sleepy. So, I know you're not really supposed to name chickens. You don't want to get too attached, especially when it's the time in their lives when they stop laying. But that is Sleepy. She does spend most of her day just kind of doing that. Exactly that. So, still enjoying their mealworm treats. And as you can see, they have pecked the ground spotless of weeds, grass, anything. That's kind of the point, and they fertilize as they go along. And if you can kind of see a few feet out from the run where they've been exploring and free-ranging, they have already cleaned the grass out for me. So if I keep letting them free range, they'll not only get good snacks, but I probably won't ever have to mow again, so I really wouldn't mind that. I did throw some oyster shell out here so they can scratch and peck at that as well. And then just have my backyard hose hung over here so I can easily fill up their inside and outside water dish that I have. But yeah. Hi, chick, chick, chick. Carlisle, get back. Get back. Chick, 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 chick. The cool thing is, they do come when they're called. I got some worms, and I kind of just kept doing that chick, chick, and dropped the worms as I was going along. So now when they hear me go chick, 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 they will generally follow me, but most of them are busy inside eating their mealworm block, so they have no reason to follow me. But yeah, this gal is just munching away over here. Carlisle, you're gonna get pooped right in the face. Get back. So if you guys are catching this video at a later date, and you have any questions or want me to go more in depth about anything, just put it in the comments of this video and I will answer them as soon as I can to the best of my knowledge. So yeah, that's pretty much it, you guys. I do have to hop off of here. I guess the baby's being inconsolable. Have my wonderful grandmother watching her right now. So I will talk to you guys later. You guys have a great day.